Let's talk about properties inside of UPBGE. Now I'm using the stable version of UPBGE. I just made a video talking about how to activate node trees and the different types of node trees that you can use inside this program. So let's go ahead and swap our window to be that logic node editor. Now we can create a new logic tree and we're going to rename this to be score. What we're going to do is we're going to sort of create a clicker start game. So our score is going to increase every time we click. So what we're going to do is go down here to this logic button down here, and we have these three different windows. We can close the two top ones, they're not important for us. And we're going to add a game property. And as you see, before we do anything, we need to go ahead and activate this logic node tree because currently it's not hosted anywhere, so it's not going to be run. So let's go down to the dashboard and apply it to the selected object, the cube. And now you can see we have our little variable that's been automatically added. And this is a Boolean type variable, so it's a yes or no. So if you deactivate this, then this logic node tree won't run, even though it's applied to the object. We have to make sure it's activated. Now the reason this is useful and the reason I'm talking about it is if we go down to the logic bricks, now you can see we have some nodes and we haven't even added these, it's automatic. So it's going to run our logic node called score. So it's a way to interact between the different types of logic scripting. So you can create all the logic node you want and then also use the node bricks in conjunction with this method of creating logic. So it's just really cool to know. Now we can go ahead and add our own custom property. We're going to add it. We're going to set this to be score. And now you can see we have the value. We can move up or down and we can set this value to what we want, but we can also change the value type. So we can set this to be a Boolean, a yes or no answer. We can set this to be an integer, any whole number. We can set this to be a float, any number whatsoever, etc, etc. So let's leave it on float. And what we're going to do now is we're going to get the mouse down button. So once the mouse is clicked, what we're going to do is we're going to modify the object's value. So let's go to the properties and get the modify property. And this is essentially going to add +1 to whatever we want in this case. So make sure you select the property being score, self because it's the script is hosted on the object and so is the value. And now we can set the value to be +1. You can see it's added, so it's adding 1. And we can set this to subtract, divide or multiply depending on our situation, but for now let's leave it on add. Once we have this, we need to go ahead and make sure everything's working. We need a way to see the actual value. So let's go ahead and grab the print node, and this print node is going to print the value of our property. So we need to get the value because right now it's only modifying it. We don't have the ability to get it. So let's go ahead to the objects, property, and get the property. Obviously make sure the property is also the score, plug it in. Now we can go ahead to window, toggle the console. I'm actually going to resize this and pin it to my window because I have a little program that allows me to pin windows on Windows because Windows doesn't have that functionality for some reason. Let's go ahead now, start and click, and as you can see it's printing our values here. So that's pretty cool. However, if we just leave it at this, we have no way of saving the value. So every time we restart the game, it's going to always go back to 0. So what we're going to do now is add a couple more node trees to be able to save this value. So what we're going to do is grab the onInitialize node as soon as the game starts, as in we're going to load the variable. So let's go down to the variables and load the variable. Now currently we don't have a variable set up, so let's go ahead and create a new file. So it's going to load a file called score that we're going to create, and the name of it is going to be point or points. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set this to be the new property and plug the value into the string, and the property is going to be obviously the score. And once we have this, we're going to make sure we know what's going on. So let's print the result. Let's grab this. The condition is going to be as soon as the load done, and the print is here. So what we're going to do now is once we have this printed, we actually need to save the file because we're loading it, but we haven't actually got a file created. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a mouse down node, and we're going to go ahead and save the variable. And obviously this variable is going to be the score, and it's going to be called points. and the value of this is going to be the property that we talked about over here. So let's just go ahead and duplicate this file, drag it up here, plug it into our string, and there we go. Basically what we're doing is we're saving a file called score, and then we're incrementing this property every time. So obviously every time we press, it's also going to save that new value that we've added as in +1, and then on start it's going to load that file when we start the game again. So let's go ahead, test this out, press start embedded, and now when I click, it's printing all our numbers. When we exit, we can get out, and then you can see it continues where we left off. And there we go, everything's working fine. It keeps clicking and incrementing the score every time we exit out of this. However, you can see it loads that score when we start up, because that's what we did. We're loading it. We can actually remove that print node that's not needed, and the same thing will happen. It's not a bug or anything, it's normal.